Wow, we have like 100% someone who has a healthy self-esteem. And with that, I'm going to be ending the poll and just sharing the results, yeah? This is a very interesting poll, and we decided to have it, right, specifically to get a sense of our audience today. So thank you for joining us. Welcome to the second session of day one, where it is Love Yourself, Love Your Kids, the art of emotional resilience. So we've got three lovely panelists today. We start with Veronica, who is a life coach and a color therapist. So that's very interesting. And then Nico, Heng, who is a heart math educator. So you will find out what that is more. And Teresa, who is an energy healer. So that's a very interesting, three very different experts will be sharing from the different perspectives, yeah? So your answers, right, earlier when you did the poll, are really indicative of your definition of resilience. Actually, if you answered someone who cries, it will show emotional resilience. If you answered someone who exercises, it's a reflection of their physical resilience. Someone who has many friends, the social resilience. And finally, someone who has a healthy self-esteem, their mental resilience. So good news is we will be covering each of these four today. Invite friends to join the Zoom link if they haven't, those that you think would really benefit from it. And let's get started, yeah? So I want to hear from our experts, right? Let's start with the mental resilience first, okay, Veronica? Many of us have guilt, shame, fear scripts from young, and all these are all unconscious. How do we change these unconscious inner dialogues?
Now, I think this word, right, shame, guilt, fear, is very scary, and it's actually not so much unconscious, but they are emotions that have been carried forward, or rather, they are issues that have been carried forward into our lives and create a pattern. This is somewhat like your building blocks. So we carry all this not knowing that we did, all right? And in order for us to so-called be better parents or be our better selves, we've got to recognize it. We've got to recognize where some of our behaviors have come from, and also while recognizing where the behaviors come from, we know and we are aware of what not to do with our children, right? Because I mean, like, our baggages, it's not easy to clear our past, but when we are aware, okay, and we know about it, we can actually watch the pitfalls of being a parent, and not putting all these scripts onto our children.
Wonderful. You remind me of just our earlier panel where we were talking about conscious parenting, because so many of us are so automatic. Yeah. And Nico, if you can share a bit about the science of heart math.
Sure. I would like to just explain a bit about the HeartMath Institute. HeartMath Institute is a non-profit organization whereby they have been doing a lot of research since 1990 about the heart rate variability. And let me explain a bit about heart rate variability. Heart rate variability, in short, HRV, is to measure the beat-to-beat variance, but not to measure the heart rate variance. In short, HRV have a lot of intelligence. So, like example, let's say HRV usually manifests as a rhythm. Like example, if a person is resilient, so the rhythm will become very smooth. In this case, it's more like you're having a very good charge up in the battery that you can draw the energy 24/7. That's a video of it. So HeartMath Institute actually in the research shows that I think more and more awareness about the beauty of HRV and how we can use HRV to entrain ourselves, right? Whereby we are having a more better resilience level as well as the so-called the mental capacity.
And this has to do with physical resilience or your energy or your mood?
Well said. I think in the HeartMath context, the resilience, like what you say, split into mental, physical, spiritual, and social. So in the sense that I want to quote what HeartMath definition of resilience, which all of us know, is that resilience basically is, in nutshell, is the ability and capacity to bounce back at adversity. So which means that you have a lot of energy to face adversity.
Okay, that's interesting. And I think when you talk about energy, we move on to the energy healer. But if we can just come, before we talk about energy, if we talk about language, you know, how does language impact the energy or our resilience?
Yeah, I think that's a really good, identification that words actually carries its own weightage of energy, right? So the words that we actually describe on ourselves, many times new children will actually feel that, oh, I got bad results, and they call themselves, oh, I'm so stupid, I can't do this, yeah, I got really bad memory. All these things actually impact directly on themselves and actually build their own ability to say that, okay, I'm not good enough, without realizing it. And sometimes the parents don't realize that they actually use these words on their own children. And they actually imprint on their children to make the children believe that I'm not good enough. So very often there is the terms right now to say that, okay, in general, we feel that we're not good enough, right? But what are the words that we use to actually contribute to that? Like a bad result, we said, oh yeah, we're stupid, right? Oh yeah, I got really bad memory, right? Or like, yeah, they always choose somebody else, they wouldn't choose me, right? So these are the words that we are unaware that we use so casually daily, but they actually do imprint on us energetically. So yeah, it's a very good way of actually zooming in and identifying simple things that actually impact our energy daily without even like being conscious about it.
So what you're saying is really just changing my words can actually change my life.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. Instead of saying that, oh, yeah, I can do better next time. I have the capacity of doing better, right? When your results are bad, right? It's like, yeah, no problem. I can do better next time, right? It builds, it's such a different energy versus, yeah, I'm stupid,
I love what you say, because the one analogy I gave is, roller coaster. Uh, as you stand there in queue and then you hear someone scream, ah! Immediately your palms are sweaty, your heart is pumping, butterflies in your stomach. Audience, how would you describe your emotion? Come, let's just for fun. How would you describe your emotion?
When in the roller coaster.
I mean, when you're standing in line there. Yeah. Veronica, just
I think I'll be very anxious.
anxious.
Yeah.
I'll be very excited.
Excited.
I was like, great, I'm paying for the right ride.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a thrill seeker, so then it excites me. So I think just in what you said, right? Same physical experiences, but the word literally creates our entire world. Where I could say I'm anxious, and as I keep repeating it, I will continue to feed the anxiety. I could continue to feed the excitement, or yay, value for money, so whatever your words have been, let's get present to them. Yeah. And together with that, I want to move on, right, to the emotions. And with emotions, we do have a slide for you. And if we can pull up the slide, it talks about the different colors. Yeah. And I want to start with Veronica, right? How do these colors, because I think a lot of us, we're out of touch. Really, I mean, you look at the vibrancy of the colors today, right? And that's why you're the color therapist. We may not be in touch with our emotions, okay? So Veronica, how do colors clue us into our subconscious coding?
Okay, essentially colors work both ways, meaning we can emit and express colors which we are feeling. Right? I'm feeling blue, quite obviously I'm moody and sad, and I'm feeling happy, I'm in a pink of health, that sort of thing. So the English language is pretty interesting because it actually has, a description of the colors. That is from inside, emitting our expressions out. Colors can also be used from outside in, meaning when we are feeling tired, or when we go for meetings, right? Let's say you want to go and make an impression, you wear the power tie. Okay, the men will always wear the power tie, right? That's red. Right? So there is a certain level of communication, a non-verbal cue that you give to others, right? So it's two ways. And how do we actually get in touch with our emotions through colors? That's very interesting. Remember earlier on you were asking about the subconscious, like are we in touch with that and stuff like that? So essentially emotions are conscious. We know that we are feeling in a certain way. we can describe what we are feeling. I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling happy, if there's a celebration, I'm joyful, when I have been accused wrongly, I'm angry, right? So with all these emotions, what is subconscious is the behavior, right? Because some people, okay, when they are angry, immediately they will take something and smash or slap someone or fight. Children, right? They fight. Yeah, so that is a very outward explosion of the red energy, the anger. Right? So when we look at colors, right, there are different expressions. And because so how do I, as a color therapist, work? I actually help people look at their color and go into issues of shame, fear, and guilt. Because when a parent or an adult can recognize where they are coming from, they will actually be more conscious and there, regulate. I use this word regulate because it's like temperature, right? We can regulate how we are feeling, or rather we can regulate our behavior. So when we are angry, we have to stop.
Which is seen in the slide.
Yeah.
So when angry, red means stop.
Yes.
Stop
So
whatever we're doing.
stop whatever, because you do not want the explosion of that color to come out. Okay. When we are blue, probably we will need to rest because things are not going too well and our mind is just distracted. So we probably need to rest and just go with the flow, right? When we are green, that is when we are balanced. And that is that, okay, when I'm balanced, body, mind, and spirit, that's where I can move. I am at my essence. So these are some of the ways in which I use color therapy to help coach and guide parents, adults, kids, whoever, because colors are really what you call a non-verbal language, and it cannot be manipulated. Quite unlike like written tests, right? You probably can skew it. But colors you can't, and it really shows up a lot of things that we never knew, lah. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, right? If let's say I'm feeling just down today, would picking a brightly colored cloth actually uplift and shift my energy or my experience?
Yeah, there is a tendency that you can do that, but that becomes very conscious. What we want to do is bring up unconscious. So when you actually use a certain color, let's say you pick up color pencils and you start coloring. Say, okay, I'm coloring maybe purple or pink or something like that. There is a hidden language with that. So maybe you're feeling down. If let's say you're picking up pink, you are feeling down, mainly probably because you're feeling unappreciated. I'm a mother, I've been, doing so much, but nobody is seeing that. Nobody's recognizing it. So it could be telling you something else which is not conscious.
Wonderful. I love how it's an insight to something. So
Yeah.
I want to ask Nico,
Sure.
being a man, there's this stereotype that men are normally out of touch with their emotions.
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
As usual, my wife always teaches me that you have no emotional expression, right? I think that's true. But I must say that ever since I learned the technique of heart map, try to be more self-aware and how to anchor back into the self-emotion. I believe myself as as more expression of the emotion. So for the past 15 years, I've been, it's about the habits, right? About how to shift the emotion to the positive one. And I must say that with that, it helped me to improve my resilience level and connect better with my children and my wife, for sure.
How did that
Okay.
help you?
The good thing is that me and my wife has been practicing HeartMath for the past 15 years. So which means to say that in the HeartMath philosophy, human to human are entraining each other. For example, I sit 1 meter away from you. If I send a good intention to you, electromagnetically I'm entraining you.
And training means?
Subconsciously. That means, like example, let's use a simple term. Let's say when I am in the positive emotional stage of love, the heart rhythm is very beautiful, by the way. When I think of my son exam, the deadline, then your heart rhythm will tend to be very in order, right? Like zigzag, and so forth. So what happened is that me and my wife, sometimes when we go into certain situation, there is no solution, just sit back and just do a so-called a simple anchor of self-emotion. in a sense, they are going back to the coherent state. So that is how we actually practice. It's a matter of practice, shift ourselves to that kind of zone so that we can come back.
Wow, I look forward to the exercise that you'll be
Sure,
sharing soon.
sure,
Yeah,
my pleasure.
and Teresa, I want to talk to you because I think energy, people know it's real. Like when we talk about energy, is it the North Pole, the South Pole? And yet, because we don't see it, it tends to be out of sight, out of mind. You know, people don't. So can you share a bit more about the work you do? How impactful energy is?
Yeah. The way I tend to want to share about energy, right, is a bit like radio waves, right? You don't see it, you don't touch it, but you hear it, and it's there, right? Your 3G, 4G, 5G, they are all emitting waves, right? And so, very similar to what Nico actually shared, right? The heart actually do pulsate and actually emits energy, and it actually impacts yourself, and then when you radiate with that energy, it impacts the people around you. So in the work that I do, right, it actually is helping people to recognize and identify that just because you can't see it, just because you can't feel it, it doesn't mean it's not there, right? And so very often as parents, right, you are working with children and you do have the intuition to sense what your children's emotions are going through. And that is that certain energy exchange already. There is that level of understanding and decoding of the energy. So in many ways, when heart math comes through with that, that device to be able to help you detect, there's a lot, science behind it, right? But intuitively, daily, we actually do and have the ability to decode the energy. That it is something that is there we are naturally born with.
Wonderful. I love what you share. And I'm just wondering, heart math actually has a science, right, to measure. Yours, is there that auric field or something that you can see?
Yeah. So yes, actually we all have the ability to, but sometimes just whether we want to acknowledge that we actually did see something, right? So yes, I'm naturally born with the ability to see colors. I'm naturally born with the ability to actually detect energy and sometimes see the chakras. So for those of you on the screen who is not familiar with what chakras are, the chakras we do have 7 chakras. We start from our root to our sacral, to our solar plexus, to our heart, to our throat, to our third eye, and then there's the crown. These are just the basic chakras, right? And very often it also is color coded, right? So it's similar to what Veronica was sharing. Red is our rudimentary grounding energy in our base here, which is around between our legs, right? So in this energy here, we talk about things that are fundamental to our survival, right? So naturally, if we are fearful in that space and that thing is out of alignment, that's where we feel, okay, we are very anxious, we are frustrated, we are not grounded, right? And we don't have the ability to access other energies to go deal with the day-to-day issue.
So I want to talk about negative energies because you brought it. So if let's say I'm anxious now, right? Maybe because I lost my job or there's a huge pay cut. How do we then sort of like bring it back into alignment?
Okay, this is a very good question, and a lot of people are facing that during COVID as well, right? So naturally, is that when we actually allow ourselves to get sucked into that vortex of negativity, it's very easy to stay there. And that's when people go into anxiousness, depression, and all that, right? And how do you pull yourself out of it? Is number one, acknowledging it. Acknowledging your fear. When you're able to acknowledge something, you are able to then address it, right? And then after you do that, that's when you actually go in to say, what power do I have within to be able to deal with it? And that's when you have ability to access your creative energy, the power to stand within yourself, the empathy towards yourself, love energy towards yourself. Love, we talk a lot about that. Your expression through your throat, your intuition in your third eye, and then your connection to like what other possibilities are there. So it's all within us that we have the ability to handle that situation. But it is coming with authenticity and awareness to actually talk about our fear, our depression, what depresses us, and then what really unravels us and where we can zoom in to go pay attention to it and address it and ask for help.
I love what you say because there's this saying, you name it to tame it. whether
yeah.
it's fear, excitement, anger, especially the negative emotions, yeah?
That's right.
Because if we can't even identify it, it constantly runs us. But just identifying it through a name is isolating it and detaching it away from who we are, right? So I am no longer anger, right? I'm Junior, feeling the emotion of anger, and that makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And now I want to ask, since we're talking about negative emotions, Veronica, I think in Asia, a lot of us are not taught how to deal with negative emotions. In fact, we are like angry, don't show anyone. And then we keep it in and we implode, you know. Some people explode, yes. Some people implode. They take it out on themselves. They feel guilt, shame, you know, and resentment.
Right.
So how can color therapy help us release and get in touch and process our emotions?
Okay, I mean, for general people, I won't really go into the therapeutic part, but in general, how do we want to deal with ourselves in our own space, maybe at home or at work, right? So how does color help us? We can eat color, right? We can eat color when we are feeling like lethargic and all that. We want that zest. So what do? We eat orange, we eat lemons, right? So that will spark us. All right. So I mean, I'm not exactly speaking about emotions at this point in time, but I'm more talking about how colors can actually impact us in our daily lives. Okay? You can smell colors. If you have a headache, a migraine, you smell lavender oil, right? Stuff like that. Okay, so that's one area, but of course, then you do coloring itself. How do we deal with negative emotions now? What you said earlier was very right. Some of us are told you cannot feel angry, you cannot feel sad, and that actually will create a lot of what we call that stuckness in our bodies, right? And when we have negative energy, it can become a health hazard, right? Not only mentally but physically as well. So when we were told, when we were young, don't get angry, and it is wrong. I would say that emotions are neither right nor wrong. Feelings just are. You can't help it if somebody has accused you and you feel upset and angry, right? You can't help it when you grieve the death of a pet, right? And you feel sad. But then how do we deal with that is the other thing, which is that awareness. What do we do with that emotion? That's important, right? So dealing with the negative emotions like sadness, right? What can we do with that sadness that my hamster just died? We probably look back and think about the happy times that I had with this hamster and have gratitude. Right? So these are some of the steps that we can take for ourselves as well as for our children. We can teach people to do that. Right? So shift by looking at behavior, shift by looking at what possible steps could we take. And remember the slide earlier on, when we are feeling sad, we slow down. When we are feeling angry, we stop. And there's this thing about stopping and breathing. Breathing for 10 counts. So that is really how we should manage negative emotions, and we shouldn't label them to be bad. I like to use this analogy. Just like when you're cooking, we have to watch the pot, because sometimes the pot will overflow if there's too much heat. Then what do? We have to turn it down. Likewise for us, so when negative emotions bubble up too much, we just got to watch and say, okay, I'm feeling this way. How do I then deal with it? Do I slow down? Do I stop? Or do I just rest? So it's really about that. And I think also parents shouldn't tell their children, hey, don't feel this way, or you are wrong to feel this way. Don't cry. That's the one thing which I somehow feel little boys are told not to do. Cannot cry. You cry, not good. If they need to cry, that is their outlet. But we just need to watch that these emotions don't run wild. Because if they were not noticed, we don't know where it will run. And like I mentioned, it either explodes or implodes. And that will cause a lot of repercussions later on in life.
I think very often it's the parent ourselves, when we talk about emotional resilience, who don't have the bandwidth to deal with the screaming in the moment. So we just shut up because I am the one that cannot take it, my eardrums. So, and that's why we began to then box. It's like, let's say I'm within a box. I then take my box out and box them, try to box them to contain that because I'm not comfortable with the expression. Yeah, so whether it's the extreme positive, they are cheering out, they're playing very happily at the playground or at home, with the lockdown, or even when they're screaming out in pain or sadness. Our inability to identify with the entire range is what I think brings us up as like, within the small, narrow ranges, yeah.
Limitations and confinement.
Yes. And Nico, so just now you were talking about the science of it, right? Is there something that you can share with us? So let's say now I'm very anxious, let's say, or let's just use I'm very angry, my child is screaming. What can I do as a parent?
Sure. I think let's go back to the science of the emotion, for example. Let's say a simple thing called stress or the so-called the emotion we're talking about. Basically, behind this stress is actually means it is a disturbance of the heart rhythm. I want to go back to the keep saying about the rhythm because I want all of us to remember one word called heart rhythm that you can train. Okay. So what happened is that like what you say, parents, be it father or mother, first acknowledge this kind of emotion, and then you can actually, like what Veronica say, you are able to disrupt, shift, and lift, which I will show you later, right? So the important thing is that we always take the heart rhythm for granted, and a lot of times, like what some of the researchers say, that the thoughts for individual have over 60,000 thoughts a day, good or bad here and there, right? So also from the HeartMath Institute research shows that our heart rhythm signal to the brain is 9 times more than the brain to the heart. So ask ourselves a question. In most of the time, do we make decisions based on the head or do we make decisions based on the heart? So now I think with this understanding, I would like to share a little bit more later about how we can actually shift ourselves to the more heart-based living and can improve a little bit more.
I love what you share because I read somewhere that actually as a human body, our mind and our heart are the most powerful electromagnetic fields, and the heart, you say 9 times. What I read was 500 times more. I mean that was I think different measurements. So if you can now just share with us, how do we get present to my heart?
Okay. Yeah. Very simple. You see, we in Singapore context, we are always bombarded with information, social media, information, so overwhelmed in a sense. So, to answer the question is that a simple thing of anchor back into emotion, for example, can actually break the thought, because a lot of times we are not worried about not enough thoughts coming in. The question is, how do we ground ourselves by just a simple heart meditation I will show later on, right? Where you ground yourself so that you can make the right decision. Why? Because when we have overwhelm of the thoughts, the few things will happen. You will have the foggy thoughts. You can't make the decision clearly, and you tend to make not the wise choice at the moment, and you regret later on. So in a way, I always advocate to myself, my family, my children of how to lead a heart-based living, whereby heart is a thing, right? For example, I always tell the son, I love you from the bottom of my heart. I won't say, son, I love you from the bottom, on top of my head. That is a key. So always remember that heart is always an anchor point. That like what the minister said, is a reservoir of the energy you can invest in.
I love what you're sharing because I didn't know that we can actually measure emotions. I thought emotions is something we feel and we experience, but what you're saying is we can actually scientifically measure the wave, and as we train ourselves to get into the frequency that we want, it actually spreads out to those around me. That's what I'm getting. I think that's very powerful. Yeah, and Teresa, I just want to hear from you, right? How do we energetically, because you say you were born and you can see, for many people, and I believe in that because honestly, my kids, when they were young, I remember we were at a hawker center, Old Airport Road. My daughter looked at me in bright daylight, asked me, "Mommy, that man so scary." Then I look at her, then I say, "Which man?" Then she say that I turn Well, I tell you, goosebumps all over because there was no one there. It was the car park. And then I said, why scary? His face like that. And then she showed me the face. So, you know, kids are so pure, they won't lie. So when I saw that, I turned, cannot see anything, but there's no reason they would lie. And immediately I was just, I get it, Belle. Come, let's eat. Change topic because don't know what to do in the moment. So if you can help parents understand that while energy may not be something we see, how do we clear it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, but at first I want to acknowledge what Nico has just said and to what you actually talked about, the range of emotions that can be measured, right? Yes, there is. Love is actually our normalization of our emotions. Anything below love is actually a range too low. So your anger, frustration, jealousy, envy, everything is all sitting around there, you know, concerns, fears, whatever. And anything above love is what we should be vibrating naturally.
Wow.
So there is actually a measure behind it. So yes, I just wanted to say that because that is actually very important for us to keep in mind that what is naturally in here is all love. We are born and made of love. So even when you're frustrated and angry with your kid, you will also realize that it's because you come from love. It's not because you hate your child, right? If you're screaming at your child for running across the road, not looking at the cars, your scream is out of love, right? Everything that we have of fear also comes from love. So this is something that I want us to be aware of, that when we are dealing with our emotions and we are really upset with ourselves for reacting negatively, it's also because we come from the space of love. We come from a space of fear, and love is actually the other side of the evil twin. I mean, I wouldn't say the evil twin, it's actually the other side of the twin, right? But it's because it all foundationally, it all comes from love. So how do we deal with negativity? The number one thing is acknowledging that, okay, where am I coming from? My fear also comes from love. My anger also comes from love. So the truth of the matter is that I actually do have love, and that's why I am going through all this compounded, complex emotion that I don't have a language to. Is because I love so much, I got hurt, right? I love so much, that's why I have fear. And that's where you acknowledge yourself being a loving being, and that's where it's easy for you to take a breath and say, okay, let's allow the love to come through instead of letting the hurt come through or the fear come through, because these are the fundamental of all behaviors. Very often when you're angry, frustrated, and anxious, there is that hurt behind it, right? As a parent and you're working, right? You go to office, you deal with work every day, and then when you feel your job being threatened, there is that hurt because of the hard work you put in is not being acknowledged. Somebody else wants to take your job, right? That's that hurt behind it. But of course, it's too vulnerable a language to use at workplace to say, oh, I'm hurt, right? So you say, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, you know, it's a more ballsy warrior type of language that they feel is more accepted in the corporate environment. But the truth of the matter is that if you dig deep into your vulnerability, like, yeah, I'm hurt, you know, and I do have my fear there, and I want to be authentic about it. So dealing with negative emotions, right, you actually do have to just go back to the center of love. But I also want to talk about, you know, in terms of the energy that we can't see, I want to share an experience of when I actually walked into a room where it was a babysitter with a very young toddler of around 1 to 2 years old. The babysitter is supposed to be looking after the toddler, was 1 or 2 years old, who was sleeping. So naturally, the babysitter was playing on the phone, you know, watching something else, right? And not really doing her job. And then when I walked into the room to look at the toddler, the babysitter had a shock of her life. And seriously, that moment, the energy exchange, the babysitter jumped out of her skin, even though it was a silent, like, right? The baby or the toddler literally sat up when he was in deep sleep and then went back in. But that is how deep the energy is impacting another sleeping child. Because when the toddler was sleeping, the energy is very open. But a babysitter who is in fear and got shot out of her skin impacted that sleeping child immediately. It was not even a half a second reaction, it was immediate.
So how wide does my energy flow? Because why I'm asking is that was next to each other. I have ever experienced like being in my room where I can hear the kids arguing in another room. And instead of going out and scolding them, right, I decided to just love them, right? To allow them to quarrel, let them iron out their differences. And what I did was just to send a positive intention of like, hey, I love you. I don't understand what you're arguing about. I don't really care, but I want you to know that I love you. And after a while, literally the argument died down. And you know, is that
Yes, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because the thing is this, our energy is based on intention. How we manipulate our energy, how our energy flow is absolutely based on intention. So as you all know, I do have a gift to be able to see, right? So I'll share another interesting story. So this is when I was in the lecture theatre, and then I was teasing a guy and said that, hey, you know, how come you're still single? Can I introduce somebody to you, right? He's like, no, don't kind of disturb me about such thing, right? So during the lecture, the lights was a bit dim, and I was listening. He was sitting in front of me, and I was like, how come I'm seeing thought bubble forming out of his head? Right? Literally like a comic thought bubble just coming out of his head, coming out, and then turning into the shape of a woman. I can see there's a bob hair and it's got spectacles, and then the energy went out of the lecture room through the door. I was like, what am I seeing here, right? And I literally followed the energy. Okay, went out the door, and then the bubble continued coming out. So throughout the whole lecture, obviously I wasn't paying attention to the lecture. I just keep seeing the thought bubble coming out of the head. So that's when I really understand, like the intention of how you want to manipulate the energy is there. So it goes far and wide. It is not limited. Of course, when I'm sitting here with you guys, there are the auric energy that is intermingling with each other, right? But when you actually send in the intention of what you are doing to your kids, it comes in a form of thought bubble, and then how the person is able to receive, they can receive it, just like how we can receive our handphone, right, being rung, and we can pick it up. And that's how I want to express here, based on what you're saying, that our intention of how our energy is being packaged and being sent to the person, be it person that you're angry with, be it person that you love, a person that you care about, your intention of where the energy is going is real, and you get this sent. It totally gets sent. So even if you're angry with your boss, right, just be careful. Your boss knows it.
wow, I think that's very, very powerful, because sometimes we try to suppress, and which causes dis-ease in the body. So let's shift the conversation to solutions. If we were to come up with solutions, Veronica, when we do coloring, so I think you alluded earlier, just pick a color and then just color. So the color I pick, number one, will be an insight to the particular state I am in. Do you want to share one or two colors, and how long do I have to color to as a therapy?
Okay. Now back to intentions first. You know, just now when we were discussing about intentions, right? Colors have vibes, and like earlier on when you mentioned about you sending this love energy to your kids, then after that they kept quiet. It is very powerful, and we can actually send that sort of color energy as well.
A color bubble.
Yes, you can actually like, okay, I'm, you know, like how we watch cartoon shows, they go boom, you know, or kung fu, right? They are essentially sending energy. So that is one way that you can deal with whatever is going on, you know, and say you need balance. Okay, someone needs balance, or even like going to talk to your boss, and you know, oh, boss is in a not a very good mood. Okay, probably I want to send that energy of blue. Right, so blue is about peace, about communication, trust. Like, okay, I'll just send the energy first. So that is one way of doing it. I mean, riding onto what they are saying. And again, you know, the heart, if you are going, of course you can't send, you know, because the vibe is not exactly coherent. So it has to be a small blue energy that you can send and say, okay, may peace be with you. And then after that, go and ask him for a raise lah. You know, that's one option. So, you know, just riding onto what my colleagues have said just now, you know, we can actually do that. Okay, of course, the other way that is more tangible will be either to pick up food, like I said, pick up food, smell, or even audio. There are some color music that you can actually listen on Spotify.
Color music?
Yes.
I've never heard of color music.
I'll send you the link, okay? It's called color healing, and they've got all the different colors. So when you want to feel upbeat and happy, you turn on the yellow. you know, and it plays, you know, you want to feel balanced or you want to feel peaceful, the green and the blue, things like that. So it's very nice music, and it sort of resonates, you know, it resonates and just gives you that everything, energy, your heart coherence, you know, the overall mental, what you call clarity. You see, so that's one area. But of course, if you want to pick up color pencils and do it, it's actually a very good practice. So for example, you're asking like, how long do we need to do and stuff like that. When we have a piece of work or just a plain piece of paper, you know, just pick up one or two colors and begin coloring. Now, number one, it clears the mind, because as you're coloring, it's almost meditative. It's almost meditative, and you can, what we call brain dump. You know, things that are coming in, you know, oh, I will have to call my mother later, or at the supermarket, I might buy this, buy that, you know, things like that. You realize that as you brain dump, your thoughts become physical. You know, it comes to existence on that piece of paper and you know what to do. It's no longer overwhelming you. So coloring is very good for mental clarity. And if we are talking about mental health, that is one good way. Just like how you purge your body, right? After a good dinner last night, you know, you cleanse. So brain dumping through coloring. Okay. The other way, like what you mentioned, what are the colors that can speak out or express what we are feeling? So earlier on, I remember mentioning pink. Let's say, for example, somebody picks up pink, and I think most mothers, most ladies, most young girls, I don't know, men, do y'all pick up very much pink?
Your favorite color? What's your?
Yes.
It looks like blue.
Blue, yeah.
Right. So, you know, when you pick up pink, right, what is it saying? Okay. And your mom's space logo is pink. So it's talking about unconditional love. And mothers, we all have unconditional love for our kids, regardless of what they do, regardless of how they have gone through life. You know, we will always say, I will still be here, right? Is that unconditional giving. But because of the unconditional giving, we sometimes also get thrown to a place where we are very emotionally drained, right? So we could actually see that, okay, pink is like all the giving until you are last in the line, and you become emotionally drained because nobody is seeing that, nobody is acknowledging that, nobody is appreciating. So the next step, what do we do when we are into pink? Self-love, unconditional love for myself, because you know, when I can give to others, I would also need to give to myself, because I cannot give what I don't have. So it is sort of telling us that message. So those of you who are picking up pink, you know, you might want to consider whether you are feeling emotionally drained, or you know, you are feeling unappreciated. Okay? When you see your moms or anyone, your sister, using pink, okay, what I'll invite you to do over this weekend, when you see them, go and give them a hug and say thank you for what you are doing. So because seriously, I mean, how many people actually go up and say thanks for being my mom, or thanks for being a mom? You will never get that. Trust me, you'll never get that, right?
I think that's so beautiful. I love the way one color has the positive side and also reflects the negative side as well.
Yes. There is a duality. So a lot of people ask, are there good or bad colors? You know, is there a good or a bad color? I would say no. Every color has that duality, the polarity of the highs and the lows. You know, so in my essence, you know, when I'm balanced, when I'm feeling the high vibe, right? I can be feeling one way. Okay? But when I'm in a low vibe, what is expressed? What is being expressed? Okay? And then what colors can do is also to invite you to look further, right? What has happened and what can happen later. Right? So it's almost a step into a solution.
Wonderful. I thank you for sharing that. And I want to conclude. I think I love what you say about eating the colors. So now I'm just registering. The next time I'm probably a bit stressed. Don't drink coffee because black color, is it? No, I'm asking you, shouldn't drink coffee. We should take something, maybe white milk. I'm asking. Or where got blue drain? I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Okay.
Cocktail, yeah.
The blueberry.
Cocktail makes you happy.
Yes. Or food.
Allow your body to be your guide. Okay, allow your intuition to be your guide. You know, because when you mentally use it, like what Nico says, right? The mental vibration is far less than the heart vibration or the gut vibration. So when we actually allow ourselves to just go for something, you know, anything that appeals to you. For all you know, okay, you're feeling stressed, right? You might want to go for purple, the wine on a Friday night.
Very good.
Right,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And no emotion is bad. To me, whether it's
Yes.
positive or negative, that's just what it is.
Yes.
And emotions are there to clue us in to what is the next course of action, whatever that is, right? And Nico, just now you shared about training. How can you teach us how we can train?
Okay, so showtime.
Showtime.
In the next 3 minutes, what I would like to do is just to demonstrate the very basic way to do the quick coherent and just tap on everyone's energy to send a good intention. So so basically what I would like to just prep all of us is this, is like example, when parents face a situation, kids not doing good enough, for example, very hard on myself. So what you do is I'm going to run through a couple of things. The first thing is that we want the parents to understand that at that time you need to know how to cut through and shift. This first step, right? So in the following 3 minutes, I'm going to just quickly walk through some of the tips for the parents to try out, those on the in front of the screen, to show exactly how we can do a simple way of heart coherent training. Shall we?
Yes.
So let's do it together.
Come, audience, join us.
So parents will have a lot of situations. So the intention of this 3 minutes is try to disrupt and therefore shift and leave yourself on the resilient level. Let's try. So put your hand gently on the chest area, shall we? And try to breathe in slower and deeper than normal. You can close your eyes if you like. Just try to breathe in slower and deeper than normal. Breathe in with the gratitude and appreciation. Breathe out with gratitude and appreciation. Feel the warmth of the heart. Slowly radiate the compassion and gratitude to yourself. And radiate this gratitude and compassion and appreciation to your loved one beside you or anyone you don't mind. Lastly, let's radiate this compassion to all the frontline workers that risk their life to protect us during this COVID-19 pandemic. You can slowly open your eyes, if you may. So what happened? It is just a very simple techniques that all the parents can use. Whenever your emotional kind of overwhelm you, just remember what I say is heart focused breathing and rekindle the renewable feeling, right? So what you're trying to achieve is you break the thoughts, shift the emotion, and lift your resilience level to face the challenge of your life. This is a simple technique. Please.
Break the thought, feel the feeling, and lift my resilience level. So
Break
I
the
want
thought, shift, and then lift the.
I want to share my experience,
please.
right? So I thought I was already very calm,
Yeah.
right? But when I was doing it, I think it really got me centered. Number one, I could literally feel waves, you know, of just relaxing. Number two, I could feel my heartbeat. So I think I really got present to my heartbeat. And the third thing is, it's amazing because the panel session earlier, Liana, one of the panelists, was actually appreciating me. And you know, so the thought came in, you didn't let the appreciation in. So I know you said to appreciate love and gratitude outward, but then the thought that came to my mind is you didn't allow the appreciation to come in to you. You didn't receive it. So in that moment, it was just so amazing, right? It's like as if there's this bubble and Junior is just focused on what we need to do. That I didn't allow that in, even though, you know, and then I was just reminded as you guided us through that.
Sure.
So I think that's amazing.
Very good. I think I just want to remind all of us that I think the everybody have a heartbeat, right? Just try to be mindful. And I think when you send the compassion is reciprocate. You can send the intention by means of that you're actually entraining the opposite, right? So let's say like if you are in a very coherent mood, you are able to entrain your children and the people around you to be resonate at the same frequency. Likewise, if the opposite send the same frequency, it enhances yourself. So it's more like a mutual entrainment. That's what I'm trying to say.
Wow, what I'm hearing is like one strand is one strand,
right.
5 strands, and then it becomes stronger.
Exactly.
Wow, that's so
so
amazing.
this science basically is you can practice at home tomorrow or tonight. You can try it.
Thank you, Nico. I think that's very useful for a lot of parents.
My pleasure.
And Teresa, what's something that I can do in the moment if I'm really upset? You know, just quickly.
Very often, it's very simple, right? Some people want to go grab a crystal. Some people want to go smell aromatherapy. Sometimes really just sitting in a space and visualize. It's as simple as that. We don't have to complicate too many things. I love what Nico actually talked about because breath is also a very, very good way of actually regulating our emotions. Just breathe. Right? Very often when they say that you're very stressed out, just breathe and get in touch with your breath. Because breath is the only thing that is with us all the time. It is life. Just imagine not being able to breathe, you're dead, right? So getting in touch with your breath. Of course, energetically, if you all want to play with the energy and all that, there's always sound bath, and there's that beautiful music, there's aromatherapy and all that. But sometimes the easiest way is really just getting in touch with our breath.
I love. So viewers, you've heard the 3 different methods: one color, one breathing, one visualization, right? And when I visualize, what do I picture in my mind's eye?
Some people just want to picture clouds. It really depends on what makes you feel the warm feeling of being safe. Very often when we actually feel frustrated, anxious and everything, it's because we don't feel safe. And as simple as that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And with that, I trust it was a very interesting session on how we can first love ourselves. Because on all 3, we concur that if we don't love ourselves, what comes out is naturally a lesser vibration. Yeah. And with that, any last tips that you want to share with our audience, Veronica, Nico, and Teresa?
Last tips. I think I would invite everyone to be mindful. Okay, mindful meaning not really like your mind getting nowhere, but being now here. Nowhere and now here is it's the same words, right? It's the same letters. Be now here and start observing hues, observing you and observe hues. Because the more sensitive we can allow our senses to be, that is where we can really live fully and live fully alive. You know, the breath, the heart, the mind, everything will just be so congruent. You know, open our eyes, open our ears, and our smell. You know, yeah, and be grateful for whatever sense you have. So that is my tip. And I guess, rather than complaining about the noise, We can say, I'm grateful for my hearing, right? Yeah, things like that.
Wonderful. The mindfulness journal or a gratitude journal.
Yes, yes. Not necessarily a journal as
But
well.
just in the
just
moment.
just be still in that moment. You breathe. You do your heart coherence exercise. And just picture the colors around. Once we can get sensitive to that, we can really get in touch with our own emotions and ourselves.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Welcome.
Veronica.
Sending pink and appreciative light to you now.
Thank you. Thank you receiving it. I think what I just realized is it's not just sending, but it's also receiving.
Yes.
And to close the circle, Nico.
To close, I just want to remind all of us, just lead a heartful life, like what I say, always remember to do the quick coherence, heart focused breathing, as well as to reactivate the positive emotion. You will see the change in your life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nico.
My pleasure.
And Teresa?
Yeah, mine is very simple. Just remember, love is the energy, love is the intention. As long as you keep that in mind, it is the best way to be who you are and who you need to be for everybody around you and for yourself.
Love. Okay, I have one more question. You said love is the base, right?
Yes.
And there are a lot of other positive
Yes.
vibrations. What
Yeah.
is one or two of the other?
Joy, appreciation, gratitude, agape. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the higher ones. But love is the natural baseline we all should keep to.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So thank you. I trust that you thoroughly enjoyed yourself. And with that, we are bringing this to a conclusion. So remember, the art of emotional resilience is not just about always chasing after the positive emotions, but it's in naming the negative emotions, allowing ourselves to be with it and choosing a course of action, because we are really not our emotions. And our emotion is just a clue into my experience or my vibration in the moment. And we can choose what we want to anytime. Yeah, it just takes being present. So thank you so much. Do join, we are going to be giving our prize now. And do stay tuned. So for 2 minutes, our live audience will be getting your prize. See you soon.
Thank you. Take care.